Hi, this is Sarah. I'm Sarah and you're watching Cooking for One. Today I'm going to make a variant of hot chicken salad that you can make for yourself on, for example, a weeknight, and then have just enough left over the next day to make a mason jar salad for lunch. The steps are very easy and the ingredients are very straightforward. They're things that you could get at most stores, and they're things that you can add or subtract based upon what you like, your preferences. The basic ingredients are chicken breasts, Sh0w, as in goat cheese, and caramelized onions. So the first thing I want to do is show you how to caramelize an onion. So when you chop an onion, chop the front end and the back end, slit the side, and then pull the sides off to reveal all of the clean stuff inside, all of the clean layers. Something that I hope to do in another show later on is show you how to make stock. These things don't need to go to waste. You can keep them in a bag in the freezer, and then when you've got enough onion papers, carrot tops, celery ends, bits of zucchini, that kind of thing, you can take out your big frozen bag and essentially make a giant tea bag of vegetables. Make the stock, freeze it into ice cubes, and use it as you need it. You can make instant sauce any day of the week, and it's not hard. So to cut the onion, cut it in half, cut along with the lines of the onion, and your onion is going to cook just like anything else. It's going to cook as quickly as the pieces are small. So put some onion oil, I put way too much, so sorry. Put some oil in a pan. I have a Revereware pan that's going to last till the end of time. And also, if you want, salt the pan, just a little bit, not too much. Throw your pieces in. I'm going to make them a little bit small. And they'll start to cook. Now I'm using a sort of charming dorm style faux burner here. So this is not going to cook as quickly as it would in a real scenario, and it's also not going to, we're not going to get to the point where you can see me bringing the onions from cooked onions to caramelized onions, but I just want to go over the steps. When you cook them on a medium temperature, and then once they're all in the pan together, because you're going to be chopping them and adding as you want, cover them up and let them soften. This can take between 10 and 20 minutes, depending upon your burner, depending upon the heat source. And then once it's cooked that long, they'll soften quite a bit. And when they soften, you add a tablespoon of butter, more or less a tablespoon of butter for every onion. This is a good bit of oil. Ultimately, the caramelized onions will be not just soft, but buttery, and they'll caramelize partly because the solids in the butter are going to turn the onions into, well, something sweet, almost starchy. So after you've cooked them, and I'm gonna race through this process, after you cook them, you add the butter, which I won't show you, so sorry about that. And then you put them aside. You can use the same pan or a different pan, that's up to you. And then we're going to cook the chicken. I'm again going to salt the pan. And with the chicken, I have marinated my chicken in buttermilk. This makes it so that it's impossible to have tough chicken, but you don't have to do that. I did it mostly because I had buttermilk in the fridge that was about to go bad, so why not use it? It is worth noting though, if you ever do fried chicken, marinating in a buttermilk beforehand with all of the seasonings makes a world of difference. So I'm gonna very quickly saute the chicken. So glad that's working. So once you saute the chicken, and I actually want to add a kind of side note. I came up with this recipe in part because I just had a bunch of stuff left over in my fridge one night. I had frozen chicken breasts, which I always do. If you cook this with frozen chicken breasts, you will find that it can be really easy and quick. If you cook them sort of halfway, the inside more or less not frozen but still raw, and then you could chop the chicken up, which is what I'm going to show you alongside here. You can take the chicken when it's like half cooked, chop it into smaller pieces, and then put it back on the burner, and you'll cook a frozen breast a lot faster. It's not mandatory naturally, but it's helpful, and you could do things a lot quicker using that method. I'm gonna chop the chicken, which I'll ultimately put in the pan once the chicken that's cooking right now is done. So this chicken is nearly done, and you'll notice that unlike my cooked chicken, it doesn't have the sort of happy brown quality that it could. I'm of the mind that the thing that solves that every day of the week is butter, but you don't have to think that way. I've got tablespoon-sized chunks, and that's more than you actually need, but like I said, I think butter solves every problem. Anytime you have meat or a protein that's getting stuck to the bottom of a pan, if you add in oil and scrape it, it'll come up. When you do something like add wine or add stock and do that, they call it deglazing. Sorry. And instantly we have brown. What magic? Food magic. I can't use this fork because this fork has been dirtified. I'm going to give this a cut. We are not quite cooked, and now I have a dirty knife. So, while this is finishing cooking, I want to tell you about what will ultimately become of the salad. I'm going to add the chicken back to the pan with all of these caramelized onions that I've caramelized in advance, and then mix it together with about 8 ounces of Sh0w. I hope I'm saying that right, goat cheese. Now, what's great about goat cheese, or really any soft cheese, is the minute it hits oil in a pan, it becomes a sauce. It requires no greater complication. That's it. It just becomes a sauce. So once this cooks, I add the onions in and add the goat cheese to it. And I can add other things in addition to that. If perhaps I would like to put sage in it, that goes really well. I'll show you grate some fresh nutmeg on top. That's also very good. Now the goal of this is to make enough for you to have for one night, and then enough for you to have hopefully for lunch. I'm making about 2 pounds of chicken. If you had one hefty breast and 1 onion and a little bit of spinach, maybe an ounce or 2 of Sh0w, you'd have, well, I would have dinner and lunch. But you know what you want. You know how much you eat. So once you have a cooked breast, and I've pretty much got a cooked breast, or so I'm seeing from this, once you have a cooked breast, you cut it into pieces, which I'm doing with a spatula because, like I said, buttermilk makes every meat very, very tender. And then I'm going to add all of my caramelized onions to it. This is about 4 onions. Now, since these aren't hot anymore, the butter's more or less solidified, so I'm mixing it about mostly to melt the oils that are already in it. And then I'm going to add all of that chicken that you watched me chop. I'm also going to chop the rest of the chicken, which has a little bit of oil in it, but not very much. This is not an absolutely mandatory step, but it helps if you like the goat cheese and want it on more of your salad. Thank you. That was very cute. Once you've got these 2 ingredients in your pan, oh, I wish I brought a bigger pan. Once you've got these ingredients in your pan, add the goat cheese, and it's probably about 1 to 2 tablespoons of goat cheese per your taste, of course. But 1 to 2 tablespoons of goat cheese for every chicken breast. And once the heat has finally hit this, it's going to become a very tidy little sauce. You can serve this if you are a bread eater, if you want to go that way. You can serve this on any good bread, hot or cold, which is what I was mentioning before. You could take it with you to lunch. And And if you would rather, you could serve it on spinach, which is what I'll do after the fact. What's great about spinach better than a regular salad leaf is that it wilts really nicely. So it will wilt with the heat of the salad, and it could be just a fourth ingredient. It's not, you know, it doesn't get in the way of the flavors. It all complements each other. I hope I didn't make a mess there, perfectly nicely. This is ideal if you are by yourself, or if you ever have a tea party. This is a total standard for my tea parties. Whenever I have a girlfriend over, it goes with tea, especially if you've got the whole, you know, tiny sandwich situation. And when I do that, by the way, I like to also chop the chicken really, really small so that it's easy to spread on a bit of bread. So at the end of the day, you can do one of a myriad of things. You can serve it on a piece of bread like that. You can drop it, like I'm about to for a whole bunch of people, drop it on a whole bunch of spinach. Or you can spoon a whole bunch of it into a mason jar that you could bring with you to work the next day. Oh, I'm making a huge mess. I promised to launder this tablecloth and bring it back tomorrow. It's like I've never worked a spoon. This is ridiculous. Anyway, you can cover it and bring it with you to work, with or without the spinach, with the spinach on the side. It's absolutely up to you. Another thing that's kind of useful about it is like chicken salads don't last for super long, so you keep it, what, 2-3 days maybe? But cold, it's really fine. And if you toast your bread, even better. And if you have a yen, like if you are particularly fond of the sweetness that you find in it, a little bit of fresh nutmeg, be really careful with rasps because they're wicked sharp, but the tiniest bit of fresh nutmeg is really great. And it's simple. And you know what, this is 4 ingredients. You can do tons. So thank you so much for tuning in. This was Cooking for One. I'm Sarah, and I promise dry cleaning. Thank you.